There is a patch of crater rim near the Moon's south pole that receives sunlight almost continuously, sits above water ice deposits, and is flat enough to land a rocket on. NASA has already picked it. They have already named the hardware going there first, and they have already decided which humans will live inside it. The part nobody is talking about is how insanely specific and how genuinely close this plan already is to becoming real infrastructure on another world. The site is called Shackleton Crater's Rim, and it sits at roughly 89 degrees south latitude on the lunar surface. That location is not poetic. It is an engineering answer to three problems that would otherwise make a permanent base completely impossible. The Moon's south pole catches near-constant solar energy, unlike the rest of a world that bakes and freezes in 2-week cycles. Below the shadowed crater floors nearby, radar data confirms water ice has been sitting there, undisturbed, for billions of years. That ice is not a bonus feature. It is the entire reason humans can stay, because it becomes drinking water, oxygen, and rocket fuel. Every other location on the Moon forces you to choose between power, water, or a survivable temperature range. The South Pole is the only place that offers all three at once. Before a single astronaut unpacks a bag on the lunar surface, the Moon gets a delivery. NASA's sequenced manifest reads less like a mission plan and more like a construction site logistics spreadsheet. The first payloads aren't people. They're power systems, rovers, and communication relays dropped ahead of any crew. Each uncrewed lander touches down months, sometimes years, before the humans will depend on it. The build sequence is ruthlessly intentional. Infrastructure first, habitation second, and permanent presence only after both are proven stable. Commercial partners like Astrobotic and Intuitive Machines are already running the early delivery runs under NASA's CLIPS program. Every kilogram launched from Earth costs an almost incomprehensible amount of fuel, planning, and political will to move. Nothing goes to the Moon without earning its place on the manifest, twice over. This is logistics, at a scale that makes transcontinental rail look like a weekend project. The lunar South Pole gets sunlight at a brutal angle, skimming the crater rims for weeks, then vanishing entirely for 14 days straight. 4 people living in that environment need roughly 10 kilowatts of continuous power just to stay warm, breathe, and keep the lights on. NASA's answer to the lunar night is a fission surface power system, a compact nuclear reactor about the size of a carry-on suitcase, designed to run without a single ray of sunlight. It generates heat through controlled uranium fission, converts that heat into electricity, and does it continuously, regardless of what the sun is doing. During the sunlit periods, deployable solar arrays supplement the reactor and charge the battery reserves. But the reactor is the spine of the whole operation, the thing that makes permanent habitation possible rather than just survivable. Lockheed Martin, Westinghouse, and IX are already competing to build the flight unit, with a demonstration mission targeting the late 2020s. Every watt of that system has been budgeted against a specific life support load, because on the Moon, a power failure isn't an inconvenience. The Moon wants to kill you in at least 4 distinct ways, and the habitat has to stop all of them. Radiation streams through without an atmosphere to block any of it, day and night. Micrometeorites hit the surface constantly, too small to see but fast enough to punch through thin metal. Temperatures swing from 127 degrees Celsius in sunlight to negative 173 in shadow, sometimes within meters. NASA's answer isn't a single heroic material, it's a layered system, each layer solving a different part of the problem. The inner core is a pressurized aluminum and composite shell, rigid enough to hold breathable air against the vacuum outside. Wrapped around that is a thermal blanket, the same basic concept used on spacecraft for decades, but scaled up considerably. Then comes the part that changes everything. A thick outer shell of compacted lunar regolith, the Moon's own crushed rock and dust. That regolith layer is what stops the radiation, dense, local, and essentially free once you're already there. The micrometeorite threat gets handled by sacrificial outer panels designed to absorb impacts before they reach the pressurized core inside. Buried in the permanently shadowed craters near the lunar South Pole, there is water. Ancient, frozen, and extraordinarily useful. NASA's plan doesn't just acknowledge that ice, it builds on it, literally and chemically. Run an electrical current through water and it splits into hydrogen and oxygen, giving you breathable air and rocket propellant from the same frozen source. The MOXIE experiment, already tested aboard the Perseverance rover on Mars, proved that extracting oxygen from raw planetary material isn't science fiction anymore. A scaled-up version of that technology is already being designed for the lunar surface right now. Instead of waiting months for an oxygen resupply ship, the base generates its own from the ground beneath it. That shift, from resupply-dependent outpost to partially self-sustaining station, changes everything about what long-term presence actually means. Every kilogram of propellant produced on the moon is one less kilogram launched from Earth at enormous cost. The moon stops being a destination and starts becoming a platform, a place you operate from rather than simply visit. NASA isn't planning to send heroes up for a flag plant and a quick return trip home. The base runs on a crew rotation model, with small teams cycling in and out on roughly 6-month tours of duty. 4 astronauts at a time, living and working inside a pressurized habitat the size of a generous studio apartment. Every hour of their day is scheduled. Maintenance, science, drilling operations, and the slow grind of keeping themselves alive. Radiation exposure is the clock they're all racing against, and the suits, the shielding, and the schedule are all designed around that single, brutal fact. Psychologically, the isolation hits differently than the International Space Station because Earth isn't a bright window away. It's a small dot in a black sky. NASA has already begun selecting and training the specific crews who will rotate through, drawing from the Artemis astronaut corps announced back in 2020. These aren't test pilots chasing a moment. They're the first permanent residents of another world. No single rocket gets you to the lunar surface. The whole system does. SLS launches Orion from Kennedy, pushing crew beyond low Earth orbit with raw, controlled force. Orion then docks with the Gateway, a small crewed outpost orbiting the moon in a wide, elliptical path. From there, SpaceX's Starship human landing system ferries the crew down through the final, unforgiving stretch to the surface. Each vehicle handles one leg, and none of them can cover another vehicle's job. That deliberate redundancy isn't inefficiency. It's the architecture protecting the mission from a single point of failure. Cargo runs follow a similar logic, with commercial landers delivering supplies on a schedule independent of crewed flights. The Gateway acts as a staging hub, holding equipment and resources between missions, so nothing starts from zero. What NASA is building here isn't a rocket program. It's a supply chain, one designed to keep people alive on another world indefinitely. Artemis 3 puts boots on the lunar South Pole, and that mission is the first physical stake in the ground. Everything after that builds on where those astronauts land, what they measure, and what the surface actually does to human bodies. Artemis 4 follows with the first pressurized module delivered to Gateway, which becomes the staging point for every resupply run after it. By the late 2020s, the first surface habitat elements are scheduled to touch down, not as prototypes, but as permanent infrastructure meant to stay. Each mission is a dependency in a chain, and a slip in one pushes everything behind it. The ice conformation, the power grid, the landing pad, those aren't bonus features, they're load-bearing decisions the whole architecture rests on. What NASA is building right now isn't a vision board, it's a construction schedule with hardware already in fabrication.